Hello everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'll just wait a little bit for some people maybe to come in. I think the acoustic here is, a bit more echo. If anybody enters, then very welcome to say something in the chat box to confirm that you can hear me. Okay, good. Hi, Alessandro. Hi, 911. I'm the killer. Or you are a killer. I really hope you're not. I'll just give it some time because there's some lag, like you know. And maybe press the record button as well. Well, I think YouTube automatically records because last Q&As, the first one I didn't record up until 15 minutes in. And then I was like, damn, they missed a whole bunch. But actually, YouTube just automatically uploaded it. So, no problem. Welcome everyone who's here. I'll just go ahead and press the record button. Of course, it's a nickname. Sure. Record. There we go. So, let me just say this. It's been a hell of a week at work. A bit of a hell of a past 2 weeks also, a bit on a personal level. And for this one, I did not prepare any questions. I could look back and dig into the list and ask them nonetheless and answer them. But how about I do this live Q&A fully on the chat box so you can ask me anything about the biomedical sciences, about life science, about the jobs, about anything you have on your mind to ask. Just go ahead and shoot. And that will be this live Q&A. Maybe also shorten it a little bit, maybe up to 1 hour max. The echo in this room, maybe I'll just show you guys where I'm at now, because the first one was in my living room downstairs and now I'm doing it in a room where there's not that many objects. So I'll just show you around. It's basically the room where I have most of my Taekwondo stuff hanging around. So that's like, protection and the South Korean flag and the belts, and that's the window. And there's a pole in the middle. And then that's the gear. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at right now. Maybe just position this. So whatever questions you guys have, if I don't see any coming in, then I will go back to the list and just pick some out. I hope I cover things that you want to hear. But if you have them, just shoot in the meanwhile. You have a question. Does biomedical science mean blood analysis in the hospital? I have feared that it's because I want to study biomedicine and do research for cures. Good question. Not necessarily, because it depends. If you're in the UK, and I think you're in the UK or not, just correct me if I'm wrong. If you're in the UK, this is semantics. I mean, I put a link in the last Q&A to the Wikipedia page where they cover medical laboratory science. And if you look there, they cover different countries and how they view medical laboratory science, or MLS. So not necessarily you have to do continuously blood analyses or urine analyses or feces. That's the clinical setting, the hospital, the routine lab setting, diagnosing patients, following up on their treatments. This is an option to do, but then in the UK or anywhere else, you need the accreditation for that. If you want to get into research, you don't really need that accreditation. So again, I'm stressing this because this is a question that comes up a lot. And the main thing is that for the UK people, the semantics make it complicated. I think a lot of other countries, or most other countries, just call it MLS, Medical Laboratory Science, or Medical Laboratory Technologist. There's also a bit of a nuance between those two in terms of maybe grade of studying, if you're an MLS or an MLT in a diagnostic hospital kind of lab. So does it mean you have to do those routine analysis? Not if you want to. If you want to get into research, then you can perfectly do that. But if you want to do research, I think if you really want to guide the research, then you would need a PhD or have a master's and then get into an R&D department somewhere in a biotech or a biomedical company and perhaps work your way up a little bit. Or you can get into business. It depends also on the state of the company, what your chances are, how big the company is, your skills that you bring. There's so many variables. So if you want to do research, you can definitely do that with a biomedical science degree. Definitely. Hope that answers your question a bit. Okay, just let me sip some. This is soy milk, by the way. Kind of like I had dinner like maybe 15 minutes ago and it was a bit greasy. It's Friday evening, I'm only human, so I'm like trying to put it down with some soy milk. The questions are coming in. Okay, that's good. I'll try to keep up with you guys. I will try to keep up. Again, if I didn't answer any questions that were in the list for the questions that you sent in beforehand, I'm thinking instead of doing the live Q&As, there will be more live Q&As in the future for you guys if you really want. But the questions I didn't answer, the outline questions, I will just shoot and answer them and release them steadily, video by video, to get all those answers to you guys. I'm not gonna let you down, so they will come. And they will be answered. But again, I had a rough week, a very chaotic week, let's say. I'm preparing another video for you guys, so there's like tons of stuff coming in at once. And maybe if you remember in one of the videos on the PhD thing, I said like the PhD project goes in like waves, and now it's a very busy wave, and that's okay, but yeah, it leaves less room for other things. So, going back to the chat box, I hope the echo is okay. I put the microphone like really near, so I hope there's not too much echo. And I will continue with a question by Ahmed. Okay, hello Ahmed. Can you get into a biotechnology job with a biomedical science certificate? So if you mean the certificate, that's the accreditation. So the thing that you need, mostly in the UK, you will need accreditation or a certificate also if you're medical laboratory science. The thing is, I normally you can. I don't have a certificate. I did the research focused biomed thing. But I think if you're trained to work in a lab, and if you decide to put your skills somewhere else because there's lab training involved, I think you can market that. Now there's a nuance. If you take the accredited professional undergrad, bachelor, 3 years, that's in hogeschool, what they call it at us. It's like, I think you can compare it with like in the US, community college, or like not university, but like a grade below, and it's very practically oriented. If you take those in Belgium, then you can choose in your 3rd year going into the medical setting or going into the industrial setting. And I think you can combine both as well, or do an extra year and add the medical one or the pharmaceutical company one to that, so that you have both options. For programs in the UK and such, I'm not so sure, but I definitely think that if you go on to do a master's and you're not accredited or you are accredited, that you can get into biotech. I was not accredited, I was research focused, and I worked in biotech. Biotech, pharma, I think these are options. If there would be a problem, it's because maybe some countries do not recognize the value yet of the biomedical graduate. I think in Belgium definitely this is not a problem. I had many ex-colleagues as well coming after me in years that graduated after me who were biomedical science graduates. There's options. I think it's how you market yourself. I think there's you need to check geographically if there's pharma or biotech hubs nearby, and if you really want to work in that you can promote your skills and say, because if you do a job application, there's so many variables. I mean, if I applied for my biotech job back in the day, my competition was biotech degrees or pharma degrees perhaps, or bioengineers, molecular biologists. Those were my direct competition. That's what I mean with the life science field as a whole. If you have a life science diploma, a degree, then it's easy to get into one of these sub-branches as a professional thing. And sometimes it's not obvious because you don't know exactly what kind of job you're looking for, but as a whole, you can get into biotech. I really believe that because I did it myself, at least in Belgium, and I don't see why this would be any different in any other countries except for maybe less being recognized. But then the goal of doing this is also to promote biomed as a whole. So hope that answers your question. Asking for a friend. What high school knowledge do I need to study biomed? Good question. What high school knowledge? So you definitely need to know organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, biology. So the biology aspects that you should have a focus on are the genetics, molecular biology, biochemistry a bit biotechnology. I mean, in my last year of high school or secondary school, if you're in the UK, I remember touching up on the human body and anatomy, biotechnology. We learned about Dolly, the sheep, the first cloned sheep. I think you must know this if you had already some sort of introduction with biology, of course. Then there's also, depending on which course, whether it will be applied or as a whole, there's some physics involved, depending also on which graduate direction you take, because you can become like a nuclear physicist in the sense of radiation therapy. I should nuance this. So there you need a lot of physics. You can perfectly become that with a biomedical science degree, at least in my university or in a lot of universities in Belgium. I should check more programs abroad, but I think this is an option as well. And then mathematics, particularly statistics, will be very important if you go into research and for applying some calculations, for instance, like a log growth phase of, let's say, a bacterial culture. That's applied mathematics. So STEM direction, there's less focus on the maths and the physics compared to engineering things. So if that puts your mind at ease a bit, definitely go into it's the biology thing. Biochemistry will be very important, anatomy, physiology, medical sciences like histology, cell biology, and then technical things like how to use equipment for particular analyses of DNA, of proteins, stuff like that. And what I say also a lot on my channel is that data science is becoming more and more important. So I think the generation you guys now will put more effort in programming and IT kind of stuff, because there's a lot more data packages coming from single experiments, for instance, where you had historically like experiments where you knock out one gene and then you check what happens, for instance, in a knockout mouse or in a bacterium to discover the function of the gene. Nowadays, we know the human genome, we know the mouse genome, we know all those genes that become expressed. So let's say for a human, let's say 30,000 genes. So imagine you do an experiment and you're isolating cells and you're interested in 3 cell types and you want to know which genes are expressed at a certain time point for a certain condition. So you have a disease state, healthy or diseased. Then you have like maybe 2 time points, okay? And then you have like 3 cell types, and then you have 30,000 genes. So you have to multiply all these numbers, and that's like a huge amount of information. And that's where IT comes in, where data science comes in, and I think this will become more and more important in things like omics that are now already present, genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics. This is the future, guys. So I think in a biomed course, this will be automatically integrated now. I also had an introduction to proteomics and stuff like that back in my day. So that's how I see the field evolving, and I think this is normal. Okay, going further. If I move around a bit, I'm like sitting on the ground, so my legs start to get numb. Maybe I'll put on some light as well because it's already getting a bit dark. Just hold on a sec. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Oh yeah, much better. So, can you get jobs? So Malcolm, can you get jobs in a clinical trial setting right after graduation? Yes, yes you can. You can work as a clinical trial assistant or a clinical research associate, if you've ever heard about this. And you can become a clinical trial manager or a clinical trial supply chain officer. So if you're in clinical trials, so the coordinator has an overview of which trials, maybe multiple trials that are running, perhaps at different sites, different hospitals. You keep track of the recruitment of patients, which patients are enrolled, which adverse events that happen. If you're the supply chain officer, you make sure that the experimental drug is like delivered, or if there's any other consumables. If you're like the research associate, that's more or less the same. You go for the informed consents to the people. So it's a very mobile job, I think, because you have to go from hospital to hospital. Back in my old company, you had the clinical department, and there I also had ex-colleagues who had a biomed degree. Some of them I even knew from my years of study as well. And they have a biomedical science degree, a master's, not per se a PhD. What I do remember is that you could have obtained a certificate to become a clinical trial manager. So you got a certificate for that. I did not get that certificate, but I think I can apply nonetheless for that or do it in hindsight. So there's definitely options. The job fair that I went to in my last year, or no, not my last undergrad year, or was it my first master year? That's how old I am. I can't even remember that. So there was a guy who was a clinical trial coordinator. So it's definitely a job that you can become. You can get into the clinical research as well with the biomed degree. At least, again, I should stress this, at least in Belgium, but I think most things apply also in other countries, and maybe emphasize a bit maybe Western countries, and then you should really double check for maybe in Asian countries, or because I can't generalize everything because there's geopolitical differences for some stuff like taxes or jobs, or so I'm just giving the information that the possibility is there. But it's up to you guys to really dig into the finer details and like ask questions to people who are in the field in your country. Definitely recommend do that. Try to get in touch with people who are working over there closely to you, maybe through relatives or other friends, or maybe through LinkedIn. There's no harm in like sending a message, being polite and asking, I'm very interested in the type of job you do. Could you please elaborate on how you got in? And you know what I mean? Be proactive. Just be proactive. I'm here to facilitate things for you guys. But if I say some things that might not be fully aligned with your situation, please don't try to blame me that much if it's incorrect or slightly nuanced. I'm trying to facilitate it. So still do your proper research, especially for like questions if can you get into university with this, or can I get in a job with this? So that's my advice. That's my advice. Moving on. You didn't know what a foundation year was, so here you go. Yeah, a foundation year. Yeah, I remember that. A foundation year is an extra year of study at the start of a university course for international students. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, that seems maybe, yeah, right to do. Then it's maybe related also with getting acquainted with the language more, something like that. Yeah, I remember. Was it necessary for the foundation year to do? If it's necessary, or can we just skip it? Okay, now that I know if it's a foundation year, or what a foundation year is, Iman, I can't quite say. I mean, to start off, I should check this. I don't have all the information. If you're talking about my university specifically, then I don't know how this goes. I should check with the guidelines or how it goes in Belgium. Again, related to what I just said earlier, for things like this, I highly recommend to ask the specific questions to the university that you're interested in. If it is necessary, I don't know, maybe it depends on your English proficiency. I do remember this, where I see that the requirements for enrollment, perhaps, as an international student, is that you perhaps need to take a test for your proficiency in English. And maybe some prior degrees, and that they will look, I think it will go a bit like this. They will evaluate, depending on which country you come from, how your degrees are according to an international standard, and then maybe decide if you have to like start with a foundation year or not. I think this is more or less, it seems logical to me that this will be the process how it goes. I hope this answers your question a bit. If you want, you can email me or with your specific program or anything, and then I'll have a look and see if I can elaborate on that a bit more. So, Ahmed, can you become a hematologist with a bachelor in biomedical science? Yes, you can, but like hematologist, the ogist part, og is like the study of something. If you're an ogist of something, you're studying something or working in some field. If you're a hematologist, you can be a doctor who's a hematologist, you can be a biomedical lab technician who's a hematologist, and you can be a researcher who's in hematology, being a hematologist. If you're talking about the routine analyses with like sedimentation rate, white blood cell count, platelet count, red blood cell count, atypical like sickle cell anemia type of stuffs where you try to diagnose these things, you can become that with, I thought you said a biomedical undergrad degree, with a bachelor. So with a bachelor, yes, you can with a master too, but for this, being the hematologist, again, with the diagnostic thing, you will need the accreditation again, okay? If you're going into research, you can call, I mean, I have a biomedical science degree, I have a master's, I'm now doing a PhD, and I'm in hepatology. So that makes me an experimental hepatologist. And I'm also checking immune cells in the liver. So that makes me an immunologist, and more specifically, maybe an innate immunologist. So you can like go cross different disciplines and like combine them. I think I covered this also in a Q&A before. You can do like research for viruses that only occur, let's say, in in the liver. Then you're a virologist and a hepatologist. See what I mean? So you can become a hematologist, but take into consideration what I just said, which level that you want to work as a hematologist. But with the bachelors, most likely with the accreditation, you will be the lab kind of, the diagnostic lab hematologist, right? So call 911, I am Achilles, says thanks, I will study biomedicine at college here in Athens, Greece. Oh, cool, Greece, Athens. I've been there in September 2018, great city. I remember like sitting on the Acropolis, the big rock, watching over the city. Really had a blast there. And then I think I stayed 3 days in Athens and then like took a tour through the Peloponnese, like Sparta and Kalamata, and like drive all the way around with my girlfriend. It was great. Greece is such a beautiful country, really beautiful country. So all the luck there in Athens. The degree is from the University of Greenwich. It is accredited, as I know. I hope I will become a good scientist doing research. I hope so for you too as well. Give it your all, I'd say. Alessandro, more of a question about what biomed can do and your opinions. Do you think it is right or possible to treat aging like a disease? And do you think it would be right for aging to be stopped? Ooh, you're asking me to go philosophical, more or less. I'll dig in. So, is it possible to treat aging like a disease? I think so. Let's say cancer. Cancer is typically mostly associated with age. So you increase your chances of getting cancer as you age because your cells replicate, and the more your cells replicate, the shorter the telomeres become. So you get less of a reserve to divide your cell before it really, let's say, nibbles on your chromosomes in cells. So cells that divide rapidly are all the cells that line the, like, let's say, the insides, like your lungs, your gut. Those are epithelia, like also in your nose. Epithelia are very rapidly dividing cells, so they divide more rapidly, they need more divisions. So most cancers that you hear from are located over there. You have carcinomas, you have adenomas, you have all different types of cancer. The less frequent cancers are adenomas, and like if you take for instance like a tumor in your bone, mostly also these would be benign because they only grow and they don't metastasize. This is me going back a bit again in cancer biology related to aging. So what cancer finds is a way to like stop the apoptosis. So when the cell dies, let's say if a cell gets into stress, it will die in a beautiful way and not leave any inflammation. That's called apoptosis. It like goes into little parts, and then your macrophages, your body like cleans it up. If you have necrosis, then it becomes inflammatory, and then there's a cascade triggering a whole bunch of things. So my point being is that cancer cells find a way like to become more immortal, let's say. And the cancer cells become immortal, but that causes you to die. So in a way, you're like self-destructing. Like the saying goes that it's in our nature to destroy ourselves. Well, basically it is kind of. So other things like aging is senescence. So Alzheimer's disease with like maybe stacking up toxins and misfolded proteins and all that type of stuff. There's different theories of aging as well. with the mitochondrial damage, reactive oxygen species. I think I covered this already briefly on a comment I left on your comment. So it's a fascinating disease area. And can we treat it like a disease? I think so. I think we can become more, let's say older without having the burden of certain diseases. But then again, indeed, the question becomes, how long should we live then if we can live for like the period that we want? Should everyone just say then, okay, this is my 100th birthday, I've had my time, but you're still in perfect health? These are the debates of the future. And how do I see it? I don't know. I really don't know. If there would be a maximum lifespan, like you have like people who are really dying from their last breath without any let's say any underlying morbidity, like being cancer or any other pathology, if you smoked some decades and then you have COPD and you can't breathe and you die because you're choking like yourself. This is a real difficult question. It's a good one, and I'll think more on that. How do I see it? I'll maybe make a video on that. That's a good suggestion. That's a really good suggestion. Meg, hi, sorry. Hi, what specialty is easier to find a job with in biotech companies? Which specialty? That really depends on what the biotech company is doing. You can have a biotech company who is more into bioinformatics and who does like a service for the big data analysis to other biotech companies or big pharma. So then you would be more into bioinformatics, systems biology. That's a way that you can be specialized in biomedicine. Let me just switch my foot here around because it's sleeping. Ooh, cramps. Oh, I'm sitting on the floor, guys, remember? And just maybe first drink a little. So covering further your question, Meg, the specialty, like my entry into my biotech company was because my thesis was on nanobodies, and I got into a company that does nanobodies, and the techniques were aligned, like doing cell culture, cell-based assays. But imagine you have let's say if the company is already big enough and they have different departments like molecular engineering, that would be cloning, where you put pieces of DNA and you put them in a vector and you express them maybe to make a protein in abundance, like how they make insulin in bacteria. That's like prior to making those bacterial strains, you need to clone them. So if you segment the process of developing a drug, you can start thinking about where did my skills that I learned or my specialties that you developed during your undergrad or your grad, where do they fit into that company? And then you can say, oh, maybe I'm good with people, I can talk a lot, maybe I should go into sales and like be a liaison who travels from hospital to recommend a pharmaceutical to doctors and try to work for a company as such. That's an option. You should definitely check what your strengths are, your weaknesses, what you like, what you dislike. I cover all this in my biomedical science jobs career playlist as well. This particular video, the career influence thing, there's so many variables, and I get it. You guys are looking now for advice. I hope I can provide as much as possible, and I also wish I had more information back in my day. So the thing is, you think you know yourself now. At a certain point, you're like maybe 18 up until 23, but you will only really think, I think you will only really get to know what you will like or like to do for the rest of your life or career, let's say, once you get into that first job. If you have a first job, then you can say, okay, these aspects I didn't like, this I did like, and it's okay to like try different things, and then maybe you will find somewhere a grounding, and then say, okay, that's okay. Then there's other people who like would switch every 5 years because they felt like they get into a plateau and their skills are not being developed further, and then they jump to maybe a higher position or maybe a lower position if they weren't comfortable, or maybe there's too much stress, or maybe your family situation. You imagine you have 2 young kids and you want to take it down a notch. Why not? And then maybe launch your career again later on. There's tons of options, and there's so many variables. So this is more a bit like life advice, let's say, from a 30-year-old, and how much that is possible already. A note on that, I think you always are like the teacher and the student. So let's relate this to Taekwondo. I may be digressing a bit, but if you have like a black belt in Taekwondo, it's your, let's say, moral obligation to like help the belts below you. So that's what I kind of feel now that I'm doing. I'm trying to help you guys because you're a generation below me, and hope to guide you in the biomedical field and life science field, and maybe get some insights into that mind of yours, and maybe try to think more like an adult. I'm not that good at adulting all the time, so you get my point. So I hope that answered your question a bit, Meg. No problem, Malkan. Iman says, thank you so much. I'm actually looking forward to do biomedical science in the UK next year. You go for it. Sure. I wish you all the best. And then the Mad Doctor says, hello, how did you develop your essay writing skills during the study of biomedical sciences? The essay writing skills. That's a good one. I don't remember having to write that many essays. Where did I have to do it? Final year undergrad was like the bachelor's test, let's say, where you had to propose like a certain topic. So there you had to compile information on a certain topic and write like a small literature review. So you learn it actually on the spot in the courses, and you get guided by the professor who guides the course. Where did essay writing also come in the masters, and more there, specifically in the first masters. My major that I did, immunology, was very interactive, it was very practical, and it was very applied to train you to get into research. We had to like come up with a sequel on a certain paper, a certain research article, discover what lacked, and then write a research proposal to follow up on that. So that's also an essay. The writing skills itself, you can develop that, but I don't recall like having taken extra courses for those things. You really learned it in the course itself, and that one that I remember was molecular virology, and then you get corrected by the professor. So another thing was like we had to prepare a lesson for each other, like in a small group with 15 people, very applied, and we had to teach each other about a specific strain of bacteria that we thought was interesting. I picked the flesh-eating bacteria, Streptococcus pyogenes. You can like then start your presentation or your class with very extreme pictures of the flesh that actually gets eaten away. It's very shocking, and people you immediately draw the attention. And we all had to give a 50-minute class to each other. So that was also interesting. And there you learn to read up on the topic, summarize what's most important, divide epidemiology, pathogenesis, all those stuff, then dive into the molecular part of that. And what I'm doing now in my PhD, I'm definitely learning some writing skills, and I still have to develop those a bit further, because you have styles of writing. Academic writing is very dry, very factual, not a lot of color words. It needs to be powerful, it needs to be succinct, and you need to deliver a message in a way, but still need like the intro to capture the attention of people, and then have like the body of your text. Online, probably also on YouTube, you can find tons of videos on how to write essays, and also type in how to write research papers or literature reviews. There's plenty of stuff to find on YouTube. I tried to dig myself a bit and got some good answers in that on like techniques to use for essay writing. Hope that answers a bit your question. Varun Sai says, your opinion on impact of big data for biology on the future job prospects. I covered this a little bit earlier also, so if you're here right now just joining, I covered this already, but it will be recorded. You can rewatch, but again, I will stress it again because it will become more and more important. I'm right now in my PhD, I am studying bioinformatics, let's say, I need to understand certain basics of bioinformatics because I have data from transcriptomics. That means that all the transcripts in the cell, 30,000 genes at once, are being analyzed, they're sequenced, and I need to know, for myself at least, how this works and how you get from this table to that kind of visual in a graphic type of thing. I want to understand this. Why? Because I know this will become more and more important even. If I would give one tip indeed, and again, I said it earlier that I think most biomed degrees or biotech degrees or any life science field that covers research, I'm not talking about the bio, perhaps maybe for personalized medicine, if you're doing diagnostics and you're following up on cancer in a clinical hospital lab, routine lab thing, then you also might begin to need more and more bioinformatics. The general point is big data is becoming more and more important in everything, and definitely also in biomed. So if you want to anticipate a bit, why not study a bit yourself on the side on a bit data science, more statistics type of things. I think these skills will come in very handy on your resume to get into a job. Not necessarily if you want to do another job, of course, maybe you don't need it. But yeah, the impact that it will have on future jobs, I think you cannot underestimate this. And that's why I'm also now steadily trying to invest in reorienting my skills a little bit. And the second half of my PhD, I still have 2 years, 3 months to go. I will focus myself on getting more acquainted with bioinformatics, packages like R programs, maybe some Python, I don't know, I'll see where it takes me, but I definitely want to understand more of it. So yeah, big data, really not to underestimate. Hope that answers your question. Do you have any advice, tips for second year biomedical science students, for second year specifically? Study harder. If you already are, yeah, then good. For second year, it depends maybe on which courses you get in second year. I remember my courses in second year were anatomy, physiology, but systems physiology, biochemistry 1, what else, like biological model systems, statistics was also in second year. I'm missing a few, molecular biology 1. So to me, my second year, but it depends on the structure, where your university is, how they outline your biomed course. If you look back to the first Q&As and some other videos, my course in Ghent University, the first year is very theoretical, and it's more or less a big recap of everything you see in high school and secondary school, with a more or less orientation towards life science, towards biomedical applications, of course. And the second year to me became very, very interesting because like you went deeper into biochemistry, molecular biology, anatomy, physiology, like how the body works. That's like so amazing, where everything is where. And like physiology was one of my favorite subjects, but it was really difficult, I thought, because that's like the physics of your body, like how signal transduction works. Like if neurons fire, that's electrochemical, how you signal like to move these fingers. The molecular process that goes from your brain to your muscles to move all this, that's like you're doing this like not realizing what is going on, and then if you learn that, you're like, whoa, this is crazy. You're like giving chemical signals, ATP is being released, there's like myofibrils moving to get your muscle do like this. Yeah, to me that's very fascinating. To me that's highly fascinating. So if you're studying that now in your second year, I hope you're as enthusiastic as I was and still am. And any tips, most likely you will be accustomed now to a method of studying. So try to further elaborate on your method, try to fine tune, and maybe balance more. If I think balance is important, you cannot study too much. Don't say this to your parents that you can't study too much. What I mean is that you should take off time as well, and you need to relax, because if you're continuously on time, you're going in overdrive, and that's not good as well. Okay. Then going further, what do you think about COVID-19? Is it as deadly as is shown on the news? Also, do you believe that a vaccine developed this year is safe? I believe vaccines need to go through many clinical trials. I should be careful making statements on this. Why? Because even though I did a master's in immunology and I have a bit of a background also in virology, I'm not going to make any claims on this, because my opinion would be is that I think, and disclaimer here, I'm not giving any medical advice, or I think a lot of people, even some experts, might not fully grasp what they're talking about or covering, and I think we cannot make assumptions that easily until we have seen this period and learn lessons in retrospect. I think in the Asian countries where they had a prior experience with how should I say, containing like the virus spreads, I think the response, like in South Korea, the response was very rapid because they anticipated this. Are not anticipated, but they have experience with that, with like the other flu infections, the first SARS, here in Western countries, maybe some responses were too slow, or because people couldn't wrap their heads around it. So I'm just going to be very careful, because I saw alignment papers also with the statements that it would come from a lab. If you look at the alignment data, then the overlap of the natural reservoir viruses that are found in the natural reservoirs, in the pangolins, I think, and the bats, to me it seems convincing, but yeah, it's like a small study. Then you also have to think, okay, where did this study come from? It was from China. Is it like a lab that maybe is influenced by a government? There might be political influences. So did we overreact on certain points? Maybe we did, but maybe it's best to overreact to save the lives of... I mean, if I think about my grandparents and weaker people, I think indeed a lot of deaths that are related to COVID are because they got infected but had prior comorbidities. They had prior weakness or prior disease. Then you could say, okay, they could have died from the flu as well. That's right. But if you could have prevented this by stopping the spread of a virus that is going on, then like the flu season will come also. And I think that will be very tricky to like distinguish a normal flu from a COVID if it's still lingering around. I think we're still in for some weird times. I think this is not over yet. But again, being on the epidemiological side and the molecular biology behind it, I can't say too many things because I should dig into the papers, and that in itself would be a PhD, I think, with all the data now from that. Is it a severe disease? Yeah, if you have like the predisposition, and I mean, if you see the emphysema that they get or like the severe reaction, these people are really choking if you get a bad reaction on it. But then again, 80% of people don't have symptoms if you capture it. So yeah, you need to make a balance somewhere. So these are hard times for everyone, for politicians to make decisions, for virologists to draw conclusions and influence policies, and then for researchers and biotech companies who have to like reorient or reshift focus. Now on the vaccine thing, indeed vaccines and most drugs need to go through rigorous testing, and it takes a lot of time, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And I know some companies like made some legal things to accelerate the development of the vaccines, in the sense that if someone would be a casualty of the vaccine that is not fully, let's say fully safe, then they have legal installments to like waiver it off. And then again, there you have to make a balance. If we speed it up, we could maybe perhaps save economically instead of some lives. But if you think further again, then if you drive the economy to a bottom, then maybe you're risking even more lives if people get into poverty. And this is so difficult. This is a geopolitical problem as well. So these are strange times for everyone. So really, so again, nuanced reactions here, because I have a bit of a background. I can say stuff around about it, but I'm not the expert. I should not make any claims on this. So these things I say here right now are personal. So if you want to get more information, I recommend checking the site of the WHO, the World Health Organization. There you will get, I think, valid news about the virus updates, and not some fake news or things that spread around rapidly on Facebook. And if you have access to research papers through your university or something, maybe you can check for the latest reviews, and hopefully you can understand already a bit on the subject there. So that would be my advice on the COVID thing, and hope that answered your question a bit. So, advice for studying the medical microbiology module at university. What books would you suggest? Plus, how would you study genetics with stem cells? Book recommendations. Second year here. Yeah. The thing is... Oh, pardon me. Let me just drink a little bit. The thing is, I bought relatively a few books. I think I bought... You saw them in the scene behind me. The setup. If I do videos, sometimes there's molecular cell biology, sometimes there's anatomy, and sometimes there's immunology by Janeway's. And there's one more book I have, undergraduate instrument analysis, that I bought for biomedical analytical techniques. I only bought 4 textbooks. All the rest were handouts or like printed courses by the professors themselves. I bought these books because these were recommended to me. So you can find them in my videos, or I think I have some listed in the description below in some videos. For medical microbiology, I don't have any recommendation on a specific book because I had a course on that. So if you want, maybe email me or send me a personal message, and then I'll be reminded to maybe check which one is highly recommended, or you can type it in Google as well, maybe the one with the best reviews on Amazon, or maybe you can ask it on Quora or something, what the best one is, but I cannot help you with that. I'm being fairly honest here. I will not recommend any book that I don't know, or at least that I not have heard of. If I would get a recommendation from someone else, a second hand, and I trust that person's opinion, then I would recommend it. But I currently don't have a clue. How would you study genetics with stem cells? How to study genetics. You can find tons of stuff on YouTube. Remember my video with the top 10 channels? There's tons of stuff to find on different biological life science topics. The genetics, there's probably also a good textbook for that. Again, I can't recommend any because I had a course on genetics. If I get the time, I'm currently working very hard on the PhD project. There's tons of stuff coming in, but in the future I will have my website more updated, let's say, and I'm thinking about like then in the future make like overview lists with resources for genetics, and then like list 10 blogs or YouTube channels that I think that would be highly interesting, that would cover topics on genetics, and then like for specifically to help you with specific courses, and not per se as only that. You still need to check if the topics that are covered in the syllabus of your professor are aligned with that. So don't forget the syllabus. Don't just study with things on YouTube or the internet, because maybe also some information might not be valid. That's why you need to be critical as well. There can be mistakes, but in general, I think people who put information out there and have fairly enough training, who are already a bit mature or are professors doing things on the side, or I mean like even your own professor who would be like 60 years old and still has experience. If you're studying something, a new technique that your professor doesn't know anything about, then who's the expert, right? So, I mean, professors can lack information as well, even though they come across as wise wizards. You get my point? So, be critical, be critical. Hope that answers your question a bit. So, Yash says, any advice for us who desperately aim for first class in university? Yeah, so to get a first class degree, so you mean like get into the highest percentile of having grades? I wasn't myself. I had a linear, or let's say exponential growth. I just grew into my degree, and at the end in my master years, this is something that maybe you should know. I even redid examinations where I had a 10 out of 20, so 50%, which I passed, but I retook them to get higher scores. Why? Because I really wanted to get that degree, which would help me facilitate to get into a PhD program. If you're already now aiming for a first class in the beginning, then the only thing I can say is study hard, and then maybe even harder than I did in my first year. Just go all in. And again, does it mean that you have to sacrifice on social life and stuff? No. On time, off time, you need balance. But yeah, you just need to study hard and try to test yourself enough if you know it. Try to see if you can explain a certain concept maybe in your own words more easily to other students, to your family maybe. This is a quote by Einstein, and I need to apply this maybe myself even more. If you cannot explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. I think this is a very powerful quote. Einstein was also a very powerful man with a very powerful brain. So maybe take that into consideration. And yeah, that's, if you want to get a first class, you will have to work. That's the only thing I can say. Then the Mad Doctor, any advice on preparing for MCQs? How would you best prepare yourself for it? No problem for your answers, for providing the answers. That's why I'm here, of course. I was like looking into the mic. Excuse me if I think I'm staring mostly into the camera, so sometimes I'm like distracted a bit. It's the weekend also, guys. I'm looking forward to getting into the couch in a bit, because again I had a very rough week, very hard working week, let's say. And the thing is, tomorrow it's Saturday and I still have to go to the lab because I'm running an experiment with my thesis student for her data, and we have to go check on the mice on the weekend, just for one weekend for now. But it means that I will have to do my commuting to Ghent, just weigh the mice, and then go back, and yeah. So it's still weekend. It's weekend, but it's still working. You get what I mean? So where was I at? I'm kind of digressing here. Sorry. MCQs. Yeah, you need to explain what MCQs are. No problem, Alessandro. Yeah, the Mad Doctor, you need to explain what MCQs are, and I will recheck that in a while. I'll move further. MML, just enrolled for biomedicine. Thanks for the awesome channel. You're welcome. Hope I can help. Timothy says, what can I do with a pharmaceutical sciences bachelor's degree? Good question. A bachelor's degree? I don't know. I don't know if there's something like if there's a professionally oriented pharmaceutical science degree. Let's compare this. At least here in Belgium, you have, I talked about this earlier, you have the biomedical lab techniques, which is like on the level, same in the USA as a community college thing, where you can choose, instead of going for the medical lab option, to go to the pharmaceutical science, biotech industry option. If that would be the bachelor pharmaceutical thing, then you can work as a lab tech in pharmaceutical companies, maybe biopharmaceutical companies. You can do that with a master as well. Maybe you want to go to a master's with your bachelor's and then become, I think you need to have a master's. I should verify this with my friend and colleague who has a master's in pharmaceutical science. But again, there, I think you have to make the choice. You want to be a pharmacist in a drugstore, selling over-the-counter or prescription drugs to patients who come get it with a prescription? Or do you want to go into the pharmaceutical industry and do medicinal chemistry or pharmacokinetic, pharmacodynamic profiling of drugs? That's another option, but that's maybe also again for the master's thing. So all the options with just the Bachelor of Pharmaceutical Science, I don't know enough on that. So I recommend you to maybe send me a reminder with a comment on one of my videos or to my email. You can find it in the About section. And maybe I will follow up on that because it will be interesting to know for any future advice that I want to give. That's also the good thing. I mean, I'm learning from both sides. You guys trigger me as well to know more about the life science field if I see some hiccups in my knowledge about it. I try to portray as much of my knowledge as I can. I try to give an example that, in my case at least, I got into biotech with my biomedical degree and hope to help guys and girls who might feel stuck somewhere in their biomed journey and say, okay, maybe I should make the switch to biotech, or maybe I should go to pharmaceutical science more, or which direction do I want? Maybe you don't know which direction you want per se at your given age right now. That's fairly fine, and that's maybe normal. Who knows? I mean, there's people who are 40 years old and still don't know completely what they want. So if you're in that phase, no problem, no problem. Not everyone is the same, of course. So, Timothy, let me get back on that. Yash says you told you will make videos on patent attorney job career in the UK after biomedical science. You hadn't, so please give me some info. Yeah, patent attorney job career. I mean, if you're a patent attorney, the attorney part, I think you will. I did mention, or I mentioned it in one of my videos on the career. You can become involved with patents or be a patent officer kind of thing. I know people, or at least one person in my former biotech company who was in R&D and made kind of like a switch to the more legal thing, legal department, being involved with patents. So there's options to be in that field. If you really want to, if you say the attorney part, you will need a legal degree for that. So you can become an attorney with a focus on the pharmaceutical or biotech field, but you will need to study law for that, okay? You can get into patents. I think there's options with maybe some reschooling and maybe some courses on law as a background to get into the patent tech transfer as well. So tech transfer is where you seek opportunities for patents to maybe get them from university where they have inventions and then transfer that into a venture, maybe a startup of a biotech or a biomedical company. There you're also involved with patents, and that could be an option. I will definitely make a video on that in the future. I mean, the goal is to make separate videos on many of those jobs that I explain, but I tend to feel that I mean, the animations and the production, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. So I'm doing what I can, and gradually growing my output, but I'm still doing a PhD, so I have tons of stuff on me to do, and right now is a very stressful period, and that's why the output is also low, and the Q&As are more direct, and I can just talk like this, so that's maybe more easy. But definitely the goal would be to maybe have a portfolio of all videos of tons of jobs, and then the interviews as well. But I'm kind of holding off a bit with asking interviews to maybe some of my ex-classmates or students, because not that many people from my direct environment know that I do this channel to help you guys. So I'm keeping it still a bit on the down low, even though my sub count is growing, and I'm still helping you guys. I mean, I'm in Belgium, I speak Dutch, so there's some people that know it, even some on campus. But yeah, being the fact that I'm speaking English, I have a lot of people watching from the UK, the US, India, Australia, and other European countries that can understand enough English, or other countries in the world, I know. So the attorney type of stuff and the other careers, it will come. I cannot promise you when. So I hope I answered your question now a bit. Again, if you want to follow up, maybe send me a message through to my email or through Facebook, or maybe not Twitter. That's not a good medium for that. But you get what I mean, right? I'm talking so much. Thirsty. Let's go on. Message retracted. Okay, I'm gonna max out until, let's say, 9:30 p.m. max. If there's no more questions, if I run out of questions, then I will just leave it at that and then go to the couch. So, call 911, you retracted your message. Maybe I answered it. Where's a good source to find internships for biomedical engineering undergrad? The truth is, I don't know. A good source for that, I think, if you're looking for internships in any undergrad, then either your university usually proposes some, or has links with maybe pharmaceutical companies or medical device companies. I think for the biomedical engineering thing, let's say, mostly is focused on the medical device thing. My friend Mary from the BME Life, go check out my featured channels. She's a biomedical engineer. She can help you a lot more, I think. Also dependent on where you live, you might get different answers, or because there's different companies maybe around. So the internships, try to maybe reach out to students who are some years above you and ask where they did it as the alumni, and check on Google medical device companies, perhaps, if you're into that branch of biomedical engineering, and see which ones are closest near you. And then you can start from there. Or maybe examples that people give in, professors give in courses. So that would be the best advice that I could give to you for the biomedical engineering thing. Alessandro said, I already said no problem to you. I think that that was for the question about aging, right? Very interesting topic. Very interesting topic. If you want, I know a good source that does biomedical research. She's a PhD and she's fairly known Dr. Rhonda Patrick. She's been a host, yeah, she's been a guest on the, I'm making affiliate kind of commercial things here, Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan show. Dr. Rhonda Patrick is very much into biomedical research related to aging and like molecules in broccoli, sulforaphane, how it stops aging and how healthy food and stuff. Definitely go check out stuff by her, Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Moving on. MCQ, the Mad Doctor. Yeah, okay, now I get it. Multiple choice questions. Let me go back to your original question. Any advice on preparing multiple choice questions? How would you best prepare yourself for it? Yeah. This is difficult because depending on the professor and the course, these multiple choice questions can be tricky. My best advice is read them 3 times, 5 times, and every single word, because if you get standard questions and the answers and the questions go around, you know, this is common. The years before you like pass down some certain questions and you say, oh, I studied this question and it seems familiar, but the professor this year like switched one word or made it a negative instead of a positive, and you go like, oh, I know the question, and then you're circling it and then you're wrong. So read carefully the MCQs. And what typically tends to be incorporated in MCQs is that they go overlapping over a whole course. So if you're studying a syllabus, if you're studying a course, if you're studying biochemistry or something, go broad and try to make associations between different concepts and different details, because there might be compounding question like searching for knowledge in an MCQ. That would be my best advice. And really, 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 really read it. I said really, really, really that many times, because you really, really, really need to read and reread the question very carefully. Okay? So Yarun says, thanks Kevin, you're a rare gem on YouTube for biomedical sciences who provides tons of insights. I'm looking forward to do my master's in bioinformatics in the US next year. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the compliment. Yeah, that's why I'm doing this. I hope I can provide some more insights for you on the biomedical field and get some enthusiasm in you, and yeah, get you guys working on the future problems of healthcare and science, and hope that's how I inspire a future generation behind me. And that would be great if I could, if I triggered something in you guys to go all in or start it, or yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So best of luck in your bioinformatics course. Very relevant bioinformatics, and go all in. Go all in. Alessandro says, you have helped me so much. If it wasn't for you, I probably would have ended up doing medicine, and biomed is 100 times better in my opinion. Yeah, I think so. Last Q&A I ended with more my vision on medicine and biomed and nurses even, and everyone in healthcare, how we are complementary and should be viewed as that, and how the mindset would be of a researcher, because you have to think long term, while a doctor perhaps would get more immediate satisfaction if you treat a patient, and yeah, or not. Like again, like I said, if you lose a patient, then you need to cope with a lot of bad emotions. So that's something biomeds typically won't encounter that much. That it's 100 times better. I think Alessandro, really you're into the research thing, and if you would do medicine and become a doctor, you can also get into research. Do I regret not having studied medicine? No, I don't regret it. I never even tried to take the UKCAT or MCAT or like the medical college admission thing, because I knew I didn't want to become a doctor. But you still can get into research if you have a medicine degree. So if you want to leave your option open for doing that, nonetheless, if you want to get into research and maybe go along the route of maybe still thinking of doing biotech or pharmaceutical, that's what I mean. There's options to like go in different directions, starting from a similar or the same base. Okay, so I'm going to look her up right now. Oh, okay, do that. Maybe after the Q&A. Okay, Lalu, I remember you. What's the difference between biomed and medicine? Biomedische wetenschappen versus geneeskunde. The difference, yeah, well, maybe I touched up on that now a bit. The difference, yeah, the big difference is that you're trained to do research, which is, if you're then going into the PhD thing, you're trained to generate knowledge. You don't have to go into research. There's other options to go in pharma, biopharma. Again, me repeating what job options you have. If you go into medicine, you also have that option, but the primary focus of medicine is to apply the knowledge, not to push knowledge and generate new knowledge per se. You can be a doctor in a private hospital and just treat patients, or you can be a professor in medicine at a university and then you're also pushing knowledge. You're still into medicine. So you're treating patients in medicine with tools that are already there, while biomedical research tries to elaborate on maybe fine-tuning some medical approaches, maybe come up with better therapies, at least at the beginning. For drug discovery, propose targets, because the pathogenesis of a certain disease or the pathophysiology, how a disease manifests itself on a molecular level, you try to uncover that. And with the nodes you discover, and that's where the bioinformatics thing again comes in more and more, because you're getting, like I told this in the beginning, you have in the early years, you have gene knockouts. You knock out one single gene or a protein and you see what happens. Maybe your knockout mouse model is not viable even, then it's a gene that is crucial for development and for sustaining your life. But nowadays, we know the genes, we know all the genes, and there's like networks, how signaling cascades work and stuff. So if you're trying to identify the most important nodes, or you can target different nodes in biomedical science, you try to identify those nodes or targeting different pathways, and that can then be a trigger for doctors to rethink how they would treat a patient, or for pharmaceutical companies or biopharmaceutical companies to have the mindset of maybe we should pursue this target to develop a drug against. You know what I mean? So that's more or less the difference between medicine and biomedical science. Biomedical research, again, if the biomedical science thing is in the diagnostic type of lab and you're in the UK, then the goal of the biomedical science, medical laboratory science, is to help the doctors with their diagnosis, with doing the blood tests, the routine analysis on urine, on feces, check if they have an infection in the urinary tract, or if they have dysplastic cells in a pap smear from your cervix, stuff like that. That's like routine clinical analyses. That's medical laboratory, okay? Then, Yash, is it possible to complete biomedical bachelors in 2 years instead of 3? If I do hard work and overtime, I'm confident I will do it because I was offered 2 great upgrade in my school too. If you're up for that and you can do that, then why not? If you want to push yourself that much, again, maybe it will be too hard. If you can, go for it, and if you feel comfortable with it. But in hindsight, don't complain that you would have no social life or no off time, or feel too stressed, and maybe halfway along the route you will feel overwhelmed. It could be. I don't know how intense your specific biomed. I mean, every student is different. Everyone has their own pace. Some grow, some maybe decline even, some, yeah, everyone has their own method, and you should feel this for yourself. If you are thinking on this and will do this, definitely let me know how it went, and I want to hear from you in 2 years' time how you completed it. So remember that. Meg says, I want to major in immunology in my undergraduate degree. Which modules go best with immunology, microbiology, or cells? Yeah. Which modules? Like I majored in immunology as well. So my major in immunology and infection was, I had a module, just call it courses, molecular virology, molecular bacteriology, vaccinology, molecular immunology, one more? No, vaccinology, molecular immunology, virology, that's it. So modules that are related to, if you want to go into immunology, cell biology will be important. Analytical techniques such as flow cytometry, ELISAs. I mean, the modules, I don't know how your specific university is built up. So maybe if you would send a personal message, and I can have a look on your specific university program, and then maybe I can recommend something along the way, specifically for your situation if you want to major in immunology related to your course. Okay. I see Luca is here. Also a familiar name. Hi, Luca. Let's go further. Kyusu, do you have any advice for making and presenting a scientific poster? I have not yet presented a scientific poster myself. There's classes that I could follow on this. I have my colleague already presented a scientific poster. There's several guidelines you have, like not making it too busy, not wanting to put too much information on that, not too much text, because posters should be visual. These are general guidelines. I think if you type that into Google, or think like guidelines for making a scientific poster with impact, I think you can find stuff on that. I haven't done it myself, but when I would have done it, I will definitely make a video on that. I think you need the information now because you're making a poster. I can't recommend any very, very, very detailed specifics on that. But if you search for guidelines, I think you will definitely find them. Dependent on which conference you need to present, sometimes they have standard templates that you can follow, and then you're sure you're making the right format. At least that would be in alignment with the congress that you would present your data. The big tip that I can give you is not too much text. Try to trim down to the essence of the message that you want to convey. Okay. Juber, also a familiar name. Have you heard of the physician associate course? Do you learn a lot of medicine in it? I touched up on that in last Q&A. I think that was one of my outline questions. The PA, physician's associate. Have you heard about it? Not until recently. I had to do some research for the channel here, and the question more specifically was, can you become a PA, a physician's associate, with a biomed degree? And I think not. You have to consider the biomed degree as a pre-med thing, because the physician's associate is still medicine, but you're not becoming an MD. And more or less you're being trained, you're still in the medical field, so you also need, accreditation, you need a license to practice. But you're less specialized, you're like working beneath a doctor. The doctor has the final approval, but you're more into like the routine things. As I've mentioned earlier, I think everyone in an MD training becomes a doctor's associate or a physician's associate before they go to an MD. And then you get like the routine tasks, more or less, things that are more easy because you have to learn at some point. But the final approval is still under supervision of someone who has an MD, who is a complete doctor, let's say. So I did hear of it until recently. It's not that popular in Belgium or the Netherlands. I think this is more something typical as a degree to study on its own in the US, UK, I think. In Belgium, I found that it's not that well known. Maybe it will increase, but people here still go to the MD thing as a whole and become doctors as such. Okay. Lalou says, okay, got it. Bedankt. Graag gedaan. Don't know how many Dutch people were or are watching. Dutch people, I mean Dutch speaking people. Peut-être en français, c'est aussi possible, mais c'est déjà longtemps passé et c'est difficile. Because, yeah, FYI, French is the Belgian second language. And, yeah, there's about, I think, yeah, half and half people speaking Dutch in the northern part in Flanders and half speaking French in the southern part and in the capital region of Brussels. If you, Alessandro says, if you start a biomed company, what do they do to generate income? Do they rely on funding from charities? Do they get paid by companies to do specific experiments and run specific tests? Alessandro, I'm always amazed by the depth of your questions. If I read this, I kind of get the idea that you're already thinking of starting a biotech company. And I remember you're being so young. So how do they do this? Yeah, they attract capital from venture capitalists and perhaps banks or a risk fund type of thing. So you have to make a pitch and you have to make a strong case with your science that your technology would work. And you could get government funding, you could get venture capitalist funding, and you go through several rounds perhaps to gain cash, and then you have to put it to work to start to invest in machinery, employees, maybe buy some patents for technology that you need a license to use. It's very difficult. I had a separate course on how this goes, and it was called Innovation Management. Very interesting, but rather difficult course. And maybe I can elaborate on that on a video in the future, but it won't be that easy because you have like dilution of stocks and stuff. It becomes very technical and almost financial things, economic things get involved in there as well. But yeah, very interesting topic. Lucas said, I studied 7.5 hours for my genetic exam today. Crying. I think you deserve a break now. That's almost a full day of work. At least I will give you the break. You can have a break. Enjoy your weekend. I think that's enough. Yash said, noted. Then Lalou asks, what is bioinformatics and what is biotechnology? How should I say this? Yeah, the nuance. The bioinformatics is where you apply software or develop software or use big data packages to answer biological questions. So the focus is on, you could also call it sometimes maybe computational biology. And that's where you use computational approaches and big data perhaps to answer biological questions. There's a different focus. The thing is, I mentioned this earlier also in this Q&A, bioinformatics is having an itch here. I think I have a mosquito bite. That's weird because I have long pants, so it might be from last night because I always sleep in just my boxer shorts. So if it's mosquitoes, yeah. Digressing again a bit here. Sorry, talking also so much. So I was explaining on the bioinformatics. Maybe you get the nuance a bit. And I was going to say it becomes more important being like a basic tool that it will become to know more about bioinformatics for different analyses also in biomedical research, in biotech companies. I think investing in data science and bioinformatics is a very good investment for your future. And what I think also is that professors and courses now for the generation that will start biomed or biotech, the generation now, you guys who are looking into get into biomed or courses or are already in there, the focus will be, I think, also a bit more on that big data is becoming more and more important for answering relevant biological questions. Okay, what is biotechnology? In essence, it's the application of living organisms to to produce, maybe if you put it in a biomedical context, then medical biotechnology is, for instance, the use of bacteria that you make transgenic, for instance, to produce insulin. So that's also a bit in the pharmaceutical field. That's also a bit biomedical, of course. So there's nuances. But with biotech, you're actually using living organisms as a technology to produce things in industry, like enzymes, for instance, to degrade plastics. That's biotechnology. Biofuels. I don't know if you've seen my video on different types of biotechnology. Sometimes it's hard to explain. Where the overlap is with biomed is that if you take the red biotechnology and you go into the healthcare, that's major overlap with biomed because you're also in the healthcare branch. Hope that answers your question a bit. Lucas says, yeah, you're finally here. Last 2 lives you weren't because you were in vacation. Hope you enjoyed the vacation. You watched the part that interested me the most. That's okay. And glad that you're here now. Juber says, thanks, bro. No problem. What books do you recommend that could help us in the first year of biomedical? That depends on how your course is structured, your the composition of all your courses is structured. You will have basic things on inorganic, organic chemistry, maybe some biochemistry as well, molecular biology, genetics, some math, some statistics, you know what I mean? Which specific books that could help for your first year, I can't really make a recommendation. I never bought any books, only the courses or the handouts from the professors. So what I recommend is go again through basic stuff on basic chemistry, inorganic and organic chemistry, the genetics, molecular biology, biochemistry. I said that already, I think. So focus on that in your first year and maybe try to find stuff on YouTube as well. My top 10 video, there's tons of stuff on there for helping you guys in your first year. Hope that answers your question a bit, Ibrahim. Kyushu, thank you for your help. No problem. Luca at Alessandro. Ciao, Coliha. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for the detailed answers. I have to go now. Love this video. Sure, no problem. See you later. Luca, thank you. My maximum is 8 hours. I can't push myself more than this. Then maybe you shouldn't. And I think 8 hours is already long. I don't know if I ever studied 8 hours at once. Maybe I shouldn't say this out loud too much, but I'm not sure if I did. I'm a very visual learner, and I'm quite fast at learning, and I also try to pay attention in the course. If I go sit somewhere, I try to get the message on the spot, and that's half the job. And that's my main tip that I give to you guys also, is don't waste time if you're going to that, or don't go. Because like in my first year for the informatics thing, that was like on a Monday morning. I was like 18 years old and getting up early for that course on a Monday morning with a very, very boring teacher, professor. It is what it is. If he or she, I can't even recall the name. If he or she ever sees this, sorry, it is what it is. Sometimes I skip that class. I did. There I kind of did lose the power that I tried to convey with my message. Well, not exactly, because if you go, pay attention. If you don't want to go, then don't go waste your time there. You could be studying it maybe on your own and then maybe progress faster. Who knows? You get what I mean? Lalou says yes, thanks, no problem. Ibrahim, thanks so much, no problem. Do you recommend doing placements, and what do we do in our placements here? Like placements in the UK, I think there's a different concept that you can do that like in a whole year or something. Definitely do placements if you want to get into the medical lab setting. If you want to work in an NHS type of thing, you will need to experience to build your portfolio, as I've learned from my research on doing biomedical, checking out biomedical courses. For instance, my course with the research focus, the placement was actually the master thesis year, where you get an internship in a research lab that is attached to the university. And that is also like a placement. And that's how you build your own small piece of research and write a thesis on that. So if it takes an extra year to do a placement in a certain biomed course that you would have, I'd say do it, because that's where you get the relevant experience. And okay, it might take a year longer, but maybe that will help you get your job faster. Think about that, because you already have experience in a lab. So that would be my recommendation. Do placements. Definitely do that. Guys, it's past 9:30. I'm going to wrap up here. I kind of said to my girlfriend that it would take only 60 minutes today. But yeah, if you guys keep sending in questions, then I always have a choice not to answer, but I try to get through them as much as I can and help you guys as much as I can. But I will wrap up here. Again, all the questions before that were sent in and I didn't answer before, I will gradually release those and get them answered as well. For now, there's no more Q&As planned in the near future. I think 3 Q&As of an hour and a half with timestamps are already a fairly good library, let's say, for people who come onto my channel and try to get some answers. I hope I can provide them here. And yeah, I think some will start Biomed soon in October. The academic year, I don't know, in the southern hemisphere, the start of the academic year might be different. But in any case, if you're going to start or just started, I wish you all the best. Go hard, keep balance, stay hydrated, exercise, all the good stuff, and have fun as well. If you're going into university, it will be a fun period for you. Try to get the best out of it, because you will never get those years back. So if you study hard, make sure to have fun as well. That's my last advice for this video. Thank you for everything, the Mad Doctor says. No problem. Have a nice day. Well, I will have a nice evening here, Ibrahim. I don't know where you're from, but here it's now 9:30 p.m. and I'm going to chill out on the couch a bit before I go to bed. Like I said, I have to work still tomorrow on a Saturday, a little bit of research. It never sleeps. And Lucas says, thank you, see you next time. Looking forward to see you again also next time. Everyone, I will wrap up here. See you for the next one. Have a pleasant day or night or evening or whatever, or weekend. And see you for hopefully the next video. Okay? Cheers. Bye.